Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with Jeff Kolpack. I'm Dom Izzo. The Bison football team set to play its first game against an FBS opponent in 6 years as they will travel to Arizona to battle the Wildcats out of the Pac-12 conference. At least for now, they're a member of the Pac-12 conference. That could change by the time we get to kickoff on Saturday night. Second ever trip to the state of Arizona for the Bison. First ever matchup with a school from the Pac-12. That's where I want to start with you here on this, because you have seen all the previous 9 games against the upper division, the big boys, I like to call them.
12, 9 and
3. Yeah. I would say 10 of the 12 were all against Midwest opponents, and the other 2 were quasi-Midwest opponents in Colorado State and Wyoming, who play a similar brand of football. This is unlike any of those 12 prior games, simply because Arizona is not a run-oriented, upfront, tough kind of team like those teams were. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I think as I throw all 12 through my head at one point here, I got to believe you're probably correct.
Ball State, Central Michigan, Kansas State, obviously, Iowa, both Iowa State games, the Gophers. They were not a pass-happy kind of team there, whether it was Glenn Mason, Jerry Kill, or Brewster. That wasn't their MO.
I think I could spin this the other way and say, well, then it's not a good matchup for Arizona. NDSU has won these games all in similar fashion. And I'm going to look this up today. I was going to do this morning. But it seems they weather an early hit by these FBS programs. Like, look at the Crockett Gilmore long touchdown for Colorado State. Iowa State going out 14-0.
K-State got up 21-7 in the third quarter.
Yeah, and then they had a long pass to Lockett, and you're thinking, okay, the athletes of the FBS are taking over this game.
I think the Gophers in 2011 got up 14-7 in the second quarter, if I remember right, in that game. And then the Bison scored 3 second-quarter touchdowns and turned that into a laugher.
So they all have, I think, a similar feel to them in that NDSU has to figure out just to hang in there. And so
Iowa got up, I'm looking here quick, I think it was 21-7 there too, was it? I'm looking here, it was 14-7 in the second. It was 21-14 late in the third when they scored their touchdown.
But anyway, at that point you thought, okay, their athletes are going to take over, and NDSU hung in there.
Yep.
And that's what they're going to have to do on Saturday night is, I'm guessing with the way Jaden DeLora handles the way he plays, which is anywhere and everywhere. Yeah. I mean, who knows where he's going, but he plays at a high motor level. And you got, the Cowling kid who's leading the country in touchdown receptions. And so maybe they'll strike quick. They got a lot of athletes, but NDSU just has to figure out a way to hang in there and let their ground game take over in the second half.
This is going to be a game where Eli Mostart would have made a difference. And I'll start there with him not being available. How big a hit is this when you consider the guys behind him are 2 redshirt freshmen and a true freshman? You have Jackson Dutenheffer, Cody Heisman, and Logan Larson, who are likely going to see the field on Saturday night. And I can remember Nate Tangway's first game as a Bison as a redshirt freshman was at Iowa State. But he was a different physical specimen than I think the 3 guys I'm just talking about. Not to say they couldn't have really good careers, but they were not of what Tangway's ilk was.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be a huge deal because I don't know if Arizona's going to run the ball all that much. And if you're talking about Eli being a run stopper, I don't think that's going to really factor in. These guys are pretty good against the run. You might see Spencer Wagey inside, and he's 280. So you might see him inside at times.
Intriguing if they end up putting 99 in the middle. Yep.
Oh, I bet they do if with a better pass rush and contain. You need some quick guys on the outside. You need Tony Pierce, LaShaka Rose.
LaShaka could be a really interesting guy.
You need
weekend.
Some guys to keep the cup a little bit, and some guys with a little more foot speed than, and say Spencer. Although Spencer's not slow by any means.
That's a good point there. Those 2 guys are quick off the edge. That it may not necessarily be a Jake Cava kind of game. It might be.
And Jake makes plays, and he's not slow either.
No, but with those 2 explosive guys.
But Jake's played a lot. I'm just saying. I think Rokes might have to play more this game.
Linebacker is a really intriguing spot because I still don't think they have what they want through 2 games. And maybe it'll be figured out after the Arizona game, but it's still a real coin flip, Jeff, because they were trying out all sorts of different rotations against North Carolina A&T last week.
Really going to miss Cole Wisniewski in this game because he's really good in the pass defense. He's 6'3", 6'4", good against the pass, and they're really going to miss him in this game. Some guy that can match up to a slot receiver. And so now it's going to be a younger guy. Probably Oscar Benson's going to have to match up against a younger, a receiver out in the slot. That might be a tough matchup. This is a game of differing matchups. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, NDSU's strength is their fullback, their tight end, and their left tackle. Those are 3 power big boy positions there.
I'll get to the Bison offense because I think it's been neglected this week and how we've talked about it because we're all focusing on Arizona's offense, and rightfully so. I mean, they have some dynamite skill players. I think Logan Kopp's another name to throw in there. I think he's done enough to earn more reps, but
somebody's going to have to come up.
The speed of that, right?
Somebody perhaps unforeseen, but everybody's talked about, but perhaps unforeseen, is going to have to come up with some huge play at some point.
Is this the first week that Courtney Eubanks gets his first pick?
I talked to him this week.
Yeah.
He's a confident young man.
Yes, he is.
Oh, wow. He's like, bring it on.
Yep. And he knows full well what he's getting up because it's not just cowing. Dorian Singer's another name. He's a St. Paul kid, went to Tartan High School. He left Tartan to go to a private school in Arizona and ended up committing to go to the Wildcats. The Bison were in on him, Jeff, in the recruiting process. I remember that. Matt Entz was in on the recruiting process of that. He scored a touchdown in that San Diego State game, the opener that the Wildcats won. He and Michael Wiley, another running back, they just have speed that's coming out of their pores on offense, does Arizona. And the thing that DeLaura does, and people that watch the game on Saturday, his ability to extend the play. Correct me again if I'm wrong, because you've seen all the 12 of them. They haven't had a quarterback like this to extend the play. They haven't had a mobile guy, and that's the recipe of beating the Bison, is have a guy that can move.
I look back, Central Michigan had speed too. They had Antonio Brown.
They did.
They had some guys like that.
They did.
That were pretty quick, and the power game
Dan
took over.
Lefevre was their quarterback who went to the NFL.
That was 2007. It's 2022.
Yep.
The game has changed a little bit. But I think the matchups were similar.
Yeah, the quarterback-wise, though.
Antonio Brown got away one time.
He did.
That's about it.
I'm looking at just the quarterbacks that they've had to face, though, like Marquise Gray of Minnesota, maybe, but he wasn't really a passing threat when they played the Gophers there. Kansas State, Iowa State presented no threats. Beathard, the Iowa quarterback, was a statue. They got to him and got a pick 6.
But he made the NFL.
Yeah, but still, he's not a threat to run the ball, is what I'm saying.
He's not a duel. Yeah.
DeLaura can do that. He can also frustrate his own head coach. I mean, that play he extended for 20 seconds and then threw into triple coverage and got picked off. And that's where the Bison have to be ready to go on that.
Yeah, and they have an experienced secondary. I mean, 2 6-year seniors are your starting safeties. And I said this last night I was on a couple Arizona radio shows.
Oh, big deal. They are. Good work.
That NDSU is not going to get fooled on the back end. They could get beat, but I don't think they're going to get fooled. I just think they've been around long enough, and Dom Jones is a junior.
Everybody gets beat. You know what I mean? It happens in a game. Like, Bison fans will freak out about it, but it happens in every game. It's the ability to
Delora's back there
that.
running around, scrambling around. I don't think you're going to see these 6-year seniors panic and give up on a play or just go,
I agree.
It's over.
I agree.
It's never over until it's over, Dom.
Thank you for the National Lampoon's Animal House reference there. Arizona defense does not look all that imposing either. They got a guy in the back end that was on Bruce Feldman's freak list that they really like. Safety there. Christian Young is his name. That will be one to watch. He's, from what I've told, basically the quarterback of the Wildcat defense. But you brought up the 3 guys. And overlooked all this week, and he has been basically since his Bison career started, is Cam Miller, who has just gone about his business. He's been efficient the first 2 games. He's played basically 2 halves of football in the first 2 games of this season, but there's a lot resting on his shoulders, and I think he's going to have some success on Saturday night.
Yeah, he's played in 6 playoff games. Is the pressure of something like this any different than a playoff game, which is win or go home?
I don't think it is. I think from what he answered that question earlier this week, I think he kind of, not shrugged it off, but like,
He's been here before.
Right. And this is not the end of the season if they lose, like those other games where he started and lost a playoff game at Sam Houston, so he knows full well about that.
I thought he was just great in the playoffs. I think he was not called upon to do what he really could have done those first 2 games. It was pretty pedestrian offensive playbook. I'm looking for Hunter Lipke to get 15 touches. I think you got to look for your NFL guys, your NFL prospects. They got to show up in big games like this.
I thought it was interesting, though, early in the game on this past Saturday, that Cole Payton was in at the goal line. And I got to imagine we're going to see number 15 in a game like this as well.
Well, I think that's going to be the MO, and it has been since Quincy's benching from Missouri State game. Then he became the running quarterback only, which, by the way, now he's number 3 guy at Temple, so really that's another story. Nope. So I think they just like that mix that those 2 quarterbacks present. You never thought you'd see that in NDSU football.
No way.
The Craig Bull, the Chris Kleiman, they hardly ever took the quarterback out even in a boat race.
Yeah.
So they like that mix. They like making opposing ends, loves making teams prepare. That's why we saw the 2-point conversion last week. They weren't saving anything.
Nope. They were putting more stuff on tape, Jeff. That's what they always are said. Your Lipke point, I think, is well taken there, considering they spread him out on Saturday and Miller threw a touchdown pass to him. That's something Tyler Roll has been telling me for the last year. We're going to put him in spots where you haven't seen him before. Saturday night's a primetime example to do that, of put a guy who has NFL looks about him to put him in spots that we're not used to seeing him. Certainly that Arizona may not be used to seeing him.
He's 235 pounds. How many West Coast teams, these guys play physical football? Yeah. Is it all spread? To Stanford plays a little tough guy game.
A little bit, but that's not the MO of Oregon or Washington. Maybe a little bit more now with Washington with Kalen DeBoer there. That's probably how they're going to play. Washington State's not how they play that game. That is not Pac-12 football. This is a completely different style, like I was talking about off the top, than what they are used to on a regular basis. And throwing this is, and I'll go to this because you've talked to me about this for 10 years, about the overlooked aspect of it. Arizona only won 1 football game last year. They lost to their FCS team. First time they ever had done that, to Northern Arizona last year. Is there any way that they would do this? All the players have said the right things. We respect them. We know all they do is win championships.
They always say the right things, though. They always do. I'm just saying there's an inherent nature in a human being to look at a school from North Dakota and go, okay, this is not USC or UCLA.
It certainly is
You've
not.
You've seen the word winnable games in Arizona media. It's a winnable game, and it is. It's a very winnable game for Arizona. But this is not going up against Alabama. It's not going up against USC or Washington. This is a team that some guys probably had to look at a map to see where Fargo, North Dakota was. That's just the way we are in this country. We are not geographically geniuses in this country. How many times have you been out and about and across this country, and we get off a plane and you go, okay, where'd you guys come from?
Yeah.
Fargo?
Yeah.
Okay, wow, okay. Is that near Sioux Falls? Is that South Dakota? No, it's North Dakota.
Yeah, we got an airport and everything.
Yeah. You know that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it.
Because we live this. We live this. We live this existence up here, and we live if we're around people with a North Dakota shirt, and it's like, you get those looks.
Yep. I look at it, too, for Arizona. They start, as much like the Bison, they start conference play next week, that they play 2 big opponents. They won at San Diego State. They just had Mississippi State of the SEC in their barn. Can't imagine it's going to be as many people there as there were last week. Going to be a good Bison crowd there. I don't think Mississippi State had that many people that are going to travel for the game like North Dakota State will. That will be a different part of this on Saturday night, too.
And again, this is nothing against Tucson fans, but if you're looking at the schedule,
what are the games you want to go to?
If there's a game that you're going to go up to Lake Havasu or something, this would be the weekend because, it's North Dakota State. I'll be here for USC. Yep. I'll be here for Arizona State.
Yep. Stanford comes?
Yep.
Sure. Sign me up.
Yep.
Washington's here? Absolutely. That's interesting to note on this. You have been to Arizona many times. I have never been there, so I'm interested. I always hear about the heat. So for fans that are going to make their maiden voyage or expecting, what do you expect, or how do you prepare for something like this on Saturday?
Well, it's hot. You got to prepare 2 ways because the desert does get cool down. It does cool down at night, so don't expect to get out of there at 2 a.m. and be sweating. I don't think. I mean, probably gets in the 70s. I'm just guessing. I haven't even looked at the low temperature.
It's went down. The high has gone down.
What's the low? 70s?
It was 68, I think, last I saw
for
on
the
Storm
low
Tracker
yeah,
app.
Yeah. So at night it will cool
Saturday,
down.
68 for the low right now on Saturday.
Yeah. So I dress, bring a, don't wear a t-shirt and shorts and expect to come out of the game, sweating.
Feeling okay?
Yeah. So not that, you always look good.
I appreciate that.
You don't wear a t-shirt and shorts.
But for how Jim Kramer approaches this, how different is it than the Kansas State game?
Not a lot of no, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference.
Okay.
You're not going to see as much sun, so that's not going to be beaten against the turf. What time's the sunset?
It's
going to
probably
be dark right away.
I would say it'll already have set by the time
I would believe
kickoff
so.
is gone.
I just don't see the heat being a factor in this game.
How about the time? Will that be a factor? I think that's more of
These
a
are
factor.
college kids. God damn, what are you talking about?
But the schedule is different. Entz even said that. We're going to change up how we do things. We're going to let them sleep in later. We're going to do some different things during the day because it's such a long time between when they actually get up and when they play.
But it's not late for the other team?
They're used to that. They just did it last
September.
week.
They did it last week,
right.
but I don't. This is the rest of the season. I think there's mostly afternoon games.
I would say that to me is different. You've got to prepare for something that you've got to sit around and wait all day, especially a game you're already anticipating, and then add on top of that.
The Bison are getting in later.
They are.
Right? They're leaving late afternoon.
Late afternoon.
On
they
Friday.
leave out of Fargo.
Probably a 2.5, 3 hour flight.
So I imagine they'll probably get to Tucson probably about 5 o'clock local time.
By the time you get the hotel,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. That's later than usual. So they're pushing stuff back that way. Probably, like Matt said, let them sleep in, do some things different on Saturday. So you're only talking about killing a few hours in the afternoon.
Just interested to see how that plays out. How are you preparing for Saturday, by the way? The longer day there for you. How are you going to get ready for game day?
Well, I first of all, I've been forcing myself to stay up till 3 in the morning. I struggled. I'll admit, after the Bison game and watching Arizona last Saturday night, I struggled.
Sluggish.
I was struggling in the fourth quarter. One eye open. I was like,
I didn't even make the fourth quarter. I made it through the third. I was like, I'll watch the fourth quarter tomorrow morning. I did not.
Of course, it'll
it.
be obviously different when you're working and the adrenaline of being there. So I'm not anticipating a big issue.
So
Sunday could be it could be a little
bounce back
tiring.
day might be a little long there. So this is the first of 3 games with the Pac-12. This game this year, Colorado in 2024, the Oregon game in 2028. After that, it's pardon the pun, it's a desert there of FBS matchups for North Dakota State.
Well,
so
don't forget in 2026 when the Bison join the Mountain West, there'll be a lot of those games.
Clearly.
So.
Well, the commissioner just left the Mountain West Post there, so that might open up some possibilities. That's something to wait on. For fans, though, Jeff, they've built up this for so much. I'm interested to see how many go and how big a deal this is. And you mentioned this in the video blog on Monday that may have said, you know what? Maybe we're not going to go to Frisco this year. We're going to put our money into the Tucson trip.
There's so many people in North Dakota and Fargo in general and North Dakota State graduates that have connections to the Phoenix area, whether they have homes down there, whether they have condos down there. If you don't have one, you know somebody that does. I know a bunch of people are staying with friends in the Phoenix area. And so you have that dynamic. You have, again, Bison graduates. You have people with connections to Fargo. I know a Minnesota Duluth graduate that lives in Mesa now, just moved there last week.
They're all over
my
down
son.
There. I mean, that works. That counts.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just a boatload of connections to the Phoenix, and Tucson's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
Gene Taylor tried to get a game down here for years. I remember he told both of us that, both with Arizona and Arizona State. And I got to imagine sometime Saturday night he'll flip this on and be smiling about it, because he was knocking his head against the wall trying to get a game down there for that simple reason, knowing full well the alumni base down there, they would turn out for it, and it would be a great event for North Dakota State. And I anticipate that's going to be the case on Saturday.
And I think destination games are becoming the thing.
That's going to be going forward.
With UND hockey taking over Nashville, I think the Bison, whenever that gets announced, that Nashville game, maybe
we'll do
Vegas.
The same thing. Vegas is on the docket.
Maybe Vegas is on the hot seat here. And so it's all about, you can't play Nebraska, you can't play Wisconsin, you can't play Minnesota, but then this is what you have to do. You play Eastern Washington next year in US Bank. That's what you do.
Yep.
This, to me, is a destination game. And just for that reason, when you've been to Frisco for 8-9 times, some fans have been there all 8-9, it's something different.
definitely everything about this is different just because of all the previous FBS trips where you could drive for the most part. Fort Collins and Laramie were long trips.
But drivable.
But you could still do it. The other ones, Ames, obviously Minneapolis, Manhattan, Iowa City, you hop in the car and you go. That is not the case for this one. That's what granted, I know some people are going to drive, but it also makes it a different appeal about that. I'll throw one other part on this, and that's the television part. Because easily, Jeff, there could have been a couple other games that Fox could have picked for this particular window. They picked North Dakota State because they believe, A, it'll be competitive, B, there'll be more eyeballs on this than Eastern Michigan and Oregon State they could have put on Fox Sports 1. They did this. Yeah. They did this because of the Bison. And there's going to be a heck of a lot of eyeballs, including, I believe, some college conference commissioners say, hey, you've had all the accolades for the last 6 years. You've had another NFL draft pick in the first round, and one in the second round. College game day, you got another visit on. 4 championships. Let's see it. Granted, it's not Iowa or Kansas State. It's still an FBS team. I think there's an opportunity here. I'm not saying the FBS offer will come Monday to David Cook, but I think there's an opportunity for those that don't remember Iowa. Hey, North Dakota State's on television. Maybe let's give them a watch.
So don't get blown out?
Don't get blown out. Nope. And if you win the game, boy, that's a feather in the cap. Whenever the next wheel of the realignment starts, that's got to be right. Wouldn't you imagine that's got to be in people's minds after if they win this football game?
Yeah. Well, but there's only 2 commissioners that count, I think, Mountain West and the American.
And the Mountain West guy's changing. So who knows?
Gene Taylor, next Mountain West commissioner.
Oh, there you go. You're throwing names out now. I will say this. There's a story in the New York Post yesterday said that ESPN and the Pac-12 are millions of dollars apart. Millions of dollars apart on a new deal. That's not why that's the case, and we pointed this out. ESPN is probably telling the Pac-12 or asking the Pac-12, who's going to be in your league? And the Pac-12 goes, well, we got Stanford, we have Cal, and ESPN's probably hanging up the phone. Frankly, because they don't know. And that's why it's such a still opportunity for the Big 12 to maybe get Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah to come to their league.
If you look at the history of Arizona football, they were in the WAC for a long time. Yeah. They were in the WAC in the late 60s, early 70s, and it didn't really come into vogue, I think, with the Pac-12. I don't know when the date was, but if you look at their program, it's been very average, except for some Desert Swore teams in the 90s.
I was going to say,
of the 90s.
I remember Teddy Bruschi in the mid-90s, and that's when Arizona was good.
And that was about it. I mean, there's been a whole lot of 4-7, 6-5, 7-4 years. There's never really been this run of great success in this program.
I'm just looking here.
But it's still Arizona.
Right. So, like in the mid-90s, Dick Tomey was the longtime coach there. They were 10-2 in 1993, won the Fiesta Bowl, 12-1 in 1998, and they have never come close to that. And they had some players. Rob Gronkowski is an Arizona alum. Super Bowl MVP, Nick Foles, people certainly know his name, is an Arizona alum. But since then, John Makovic, who was longtime Texas coach, took over. This is just since 2004. 3, 6, 5, 8, 8, 7, 4. Rich Rod comes in. They won 10 games in 2014, so they were pretty good then. Then they fell off the map. 7, 3, 7. They hired Kevin Sumlin. 5 wins, 4 wins, 0 wins. That was the COVID year, and then 1 win last year. So it's been more mediocre at best than good at football out there. They are definitely second place out there. Arizona State has surpassed them in that state for football.
I agree, but Arizona State hasn't really
they haven't ripped the lid off of there either. Just looking at, they have great facilities. I'm interested to see that too, what they have there. And Jed Fish is determined. He's taken a bunch of transfers like we talked about to turn this and this era of the portal. You full well know that you can get good pretty quick, and they're already better than they were last year. There's no doubt about that. I want to see how good they are on Saturday night against a team that wants to play good defense and run the football.
I'll be curious to see how good they are in the trenches. We know they're really good on the outside.
Yep.
We'll see how good they are in the
middle.
middle.
Skill players, no doubt. Before we wrap, we got to do some picks here. It's a big weekend for the Valley and the Big Sky. I'm going to tell you something. I said it on my show earlier this week. I know you listen all the time. I think this is the year the Big Sky wins the challenge against the Missouri Valley Football Conference. This is going to happen
That's about
this year.
time.
Well, the Valley has won it every year. But I think this is going to happen this year because I think the Missouri Valley Football Conference
They're already 1-0, right?
Right.
With Montana over South Dakota. That wasn't even close.
It is more top-heavy than it has been in past years. Normally, teams 4, 5, and 6 are still pretty good. 4, 5, and 6 this year may not be very good at all, Jeffrey. I'm looking at you, South Dakota. I'm looking at you, Southern Illinois. I'm looking at you, even Missouri State, who's 2-0. They haven't looked all that impressive. What do you take from that?
I think you're spot on. Northern Iowa has not been impressive.
I'm looking at you, Northern Iowa. Yes.
Usually teams that make some sort of a statement of some sort early in the season. Southern Illinois has been anything but.
Their statement has been, we're not very good. That's what I would say.
Northern Iowa's defense statement for the first time in Mark Farley's long career is their statement is defensively not very good.
They have a huge game this weekend. So let's start it here with Montana at Indiana State. The Grizz going to Terre Haute here.
Indiana State, they're still trying to, I think, come back from not playing the COVID year. Just not a real solid team right now. Just a meh team.
So Montana didn't play either in the COVID year, but I think Houck had them ready.
They've obviously rebounded better.
They rebounded all right. So Montana's going to win big there. Interesting game in Vermilion. The Bison go there next week. The Coyotes welcome in Cal Poly, Bo Baldwin's team, for a Saturday. Bo Baldwin, last time he was in Vermilion, he lost with Eastern Washington in 2011 or 12, I want to say.
Huge week for USD. Bob Nielsen, the head coach, has taken over play calling duties. So
saw that.
Things are changing there.
Yep.
The red flags are out for sure.
They have not played well in either game. They got boat raced by Kansas State, and I don't think they played very well against Montana last week.
I think when you make a change
that early,
this early assistant staff, that means the head coach is feeling the heat.
What do you got for a game, for a winner?
Cal Poly, until they impress me, I got to go with I have to go with the Coyotes.
Okay. North Dakota at Northern Arizona. What a neat stat this is that both the North Dakota football teams are playing in the state of Arizona on the same day. And NAU just beat Sam Houston last week in Huntsville.
Yeah, so be careful, North Dakota. NAU, again, they're coming off, but they're such an average program.
I think they're below average. I don't think they're average. I think they're below average.
I'm going with UND this game just because I like the way they found a way to beat Northern Iowa.
Good win over Northern Iowa, no doubt about it.
And they played well at Nebraska.
Yep.
I'm taking UND.
I like the Fighting Hawk offensive line has gelled together better than I think even Bubba Schweiger thought. I like UND on the road there. Sacramento State, the two-time Big Sky champions at Northern Iowa. This is a really big game, just national picture-wise. Sac State can finally say, hey, we're not frauds. We just went to Cedar Falls and won. Does it happen?
Sac State is a weird team to try to predict. And
they're beyond weird.
I got to believe that UNI rebounds. I got to believe.
I think so, too. At home, I think Northern Iowa wins that football game. This used to be a Big Sky Valley challenge, but Southern Utah got kicked out of the Big Sky. They're in the WAC. Southern Utah and Western Illinois. Cedar City versus Macomb. Two places you've gone to there. Yeah. That's not really that's a boat race in terms of cities, I know, in your mind.
Oh, man. How do you pick? Southern Utah just got killed last week. And this is at Western.
It's in Macomb.
I'm still taking Southern Utah. That Western has such a long way to go.
Western got ripped by the Gophers. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think Southern Utah wins. The other games are FBS games, so we don't have to pick them, but I'm interested in what you think of them. Mo State at Arkansas with Bobby Petrino going back to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where he was obviously a legend with the Hogs. Yeah. Does Mo State keep this close? Arkansas is ranked 10th in the country.
I don't know. Maybe they hang in there for a half, but I just think that Mo State they have some athletes, but I just don't see the team thing really happening yet with them.
Yeah, I think Arkansas probably wins pretty comfortably by 3 touchdowns there. Youngstown State goes to Kentucky. Kentucky's ranked 9th in the country. The Wildcats just beat Florida in Gainesville last Saturday.
I like Kentucky pretty comfortable. Youngstown, again, in the early stages of rebuilding.
They've beaten 2 Pioneer League teams to start
Doug
their
Phillips
season.
Going the high school route mainly, which good for him. It's going to take time, but not this week.
Now, this would be just like Southern Illinois, to stink it up the first 2 games and then beat an FBS game. Their FBS game is at Northwestern on Saturday. They have a chance against the Wildcats.
No, you give up 64 to the word, and there's just questions everywhere right now. You could say one game was a freak show, but when you play poorly defensively twice,
to SEMO,
you lose to SEMO, you're just not very good.
Yeah. Last thing before we go, 6 FCS teams have won against FBS. Most of them in Group of 5. I think all of them actually have been Group of 5. Is that indicative of just the FCS may be better than we thought this year, or the Group of 5 is bad this season?
No, I've been saying this it's indicative of there's so many players out there.
Okay.
That, yes, I guess ultimately those subdivisions have come a little closer together in playing ability.
I think maybe the FCS is a bit better than I gave him credit for this year, but boy, there's some Group of 5 teams that are not very good.
Yep.
There are some ones there that you shake your head at. And now on the flip side, we talked about this on Hot Mic on Monday. The Sun Belt is out there saying, hey, we got some teams in our league. I mean, they're getting College Game Day, obviously, this week with App State and Troy, that they can sit there and say, we might be the top Group of 5 league now. There'd be a lot of merit to that, especially after what the Mountain West had happened to it last weekend with Nevada getting blown out.
Amazing how things change. The Sun Belt used to be just used to be the Mid-Continent Conference of football. Remember the old Mid-Con, which became the Summit.
Well, it was the butt of jokes because they played on Wednesdays too. They played on Tuesdays and Wednesdays just like the MAC. They just didn't have a fun nickname. Now we got some teams out here who can play.
Why MACtion should be all year round.
I don't think the coaches would sign up for that. I don't think that's something they would enjoy. Reminder, we are heading to Tucson. Kolpack, McFeely, myself, the entire WDAY Forum Sports team will be out there. Jeff and Michael have stories online. You can look for them tomorrow at inforum.com. We'll have our first report for the news tomorrow night, Friday night, 10 o'clock on WDAY. And then bright and early, 8 a.m. local, 10 a.m. Central for Bison Game Day, a full 12 hours. Not even the Super Bowl pregame show starts this early, but we're going to be on Saturday morning to get you ready for
long day.
NDSU and Arizona.
And we're going to be doing stuff during the day on Saturday, too,
Absolutely.
on inform.com. So it's just not like there's going to be this 12-hour void.
You're not? I was going to go take a nap for a little bit. It's not
come on.
You can't do that?
Suck it up.
All right. Well, we'll be ready for you. And, of course, kickoff on Fox Sports 1. We're not on WDAY this week, so no hate mail to Kolpack or I that you can't find the game on WDAY. It's on Fox Sports 1 on Saturday night. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.